Hello. Hi, Yuta.
Hi, Elfina. So good to see you.
Good to see you too. Here we are. I'm so excited about today. So, we are changing our community format for our weekly Q&As. So, we're
Yeah.
going live now here, and our community is called Authentically You. It's a community in school. It's free where we have a ton of free resources to help you grow your audience and love being on camera. So, this is our weekly Q&A where you can ask your questions, get your answers. And there's a QR code that you can scan to join our free community, and we'll make sure that you have the link down below as well. And also subscribe so you don't miss notifications for future videos. So let's see who we have in here today. I know a few people are going to be joining us, and we actually have some questions already, don't we, Yukta?
Yes, absolutely. We have a few questions lined up, and as we get this discussion going on, anyone who has any extra questions, they can just put them in the comment and we'll be discussing it right away.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so let's get started right away because I know some people have asked these inside our community before. Okay, so the
Okay.
first question?
First
Yeah.
question is what are the three basics that I should take care of when I'm in front of the camera? And I think this has to be the first question of this entire discussion that we're going to have today.
Yeah, the three basics. Yeah, that's an interesting one because I actually have a free cheat sheet that I give out to my
Hmm.
members and anyone who we connect with on social media, where I kind of flip the script here. So instead of talking about the three basics, because there are so many things that we can, depending on what we're working on, whether we're working on the script, our presence, or the environment, like the setup and the tech,
Right.
there's so many basics that we can apply. So I kind of our community is called Authentically You. So the purpose of this is to really get you to shine with your unique you, right? That no one
Yeah.
else can copy. And so it's instead of three basic things that you can start off, I talk about the three things to stop doing on camera because
Hmm.
sometimes we may not even know that we're doing these things. And when we bring it to our awareness and we stop doing these things, we're like, oh, actually, this kind of frees up other areas and these other basics kind of fall into place, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's actually interesting. I'd love to know more about that.
Okay, yeah, cool. So the three things that I talk about is stop overthinking, and I'll get more into
Hmm.
this as well as we talk. Stop chasing perfection and stop hiding your vulnerability. So we'll get into these a little bit more. So the overthinking is like anything where, it could be so simple like, is the lighting okay? Can they hear me? Does it look like I'm reading on my script? Are they listening? Is anyone there? All these things can happen in a flurry of thoughts. And because, our minds can go a mile a minute. And when we are focusing on
Yeah.
these things and wondering, what that does is it pulls us out of our body. We're like in our mind. So we're not present anymore. And so that on camera, we can see it as the audience. We can feel that as a disconnect, like, oh, where are they? Even though they might not be able to pinpoint it. So the overthinking, right? And then the perfectionism. So stop chasing perfection. So, and that can be like people stopping before
Hmm.
they even start, right? Like, I need
Oh.
everything to be perfect. I need the script to be perfect. I need my performance to be perfect. So, memorizing, we get into memorizing and what I like to do instead of memorizing. I actually don't like using that word. And also, the perfect setup, the perfect environment. I know I've actually done that before too, where it's like, I don't have the right studio setup. I can't do this. But, there's always ways. And we'll get more into this as well in terms of the environment and creating the environment to help support you. So, not everyone has the studio set up, right? But
Right.
some people also like filming outside. So, if you like filming outside, finding a way to film outside or walking and talking, if that flows for you where you can be more yourself, then
Hmm.
that's where you should be filming, right? We don't always have to have the same setup that someone else does. And then the third thing is stop hiding your vulnerability. And so I actually have a member in our community that, every she's wonderful. She's so vibrant and so outgoing. And when, we're talking and communicating, even when she's
Right.
being interviewed on camera, she's very, very talkative and comfortable. But as soon as she's alone with a camera and she turns it on, it's like she disappears. And we discovered that it's because there's this idea that she needs to put herself into a persona. She's created this idea of who she needs to be in front of the camera.
Hmm.
Yet when she is already herself with other people, she already is herself. But when she's alone, that kind of shifts. So we work through that together so that she can find that same energy, her unique vibrance, vibration on camera when she's just talking to the camera versus an interview style. So those are kind of the three things I like to start with, because that really gets us out of our mind. And when we can shift this thought process, then the three basics, whether it's setup or your script or whatever it is, that will fall into place and it becomes a bit easier, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. To actually reiterate what you have mentioned, you need to understand the environment, you need to understand the vulnerability aspect of it. However, to just like for a better understanding, you mentioned that it's okay if you do not have the same environment as the other person, and you should suit or maybe make changes based on the environment that you like. It could be the case that for that video, the best setting is the studio setting, but your favorite environment is the environment that is not the studio, like recording outside. So how do you navigate this little challenges that come when you're taking care of the second aspect that you talked about?
Finding the environment, I think it also depends on what is the message you're trying to convey and what feels authentic, because whatever the content is,
Right.
you can use the environment to help tell the story, to help you feel more comfortable. So that's a pretty specific, unique question where I would have to dig a little bit more to see what is the purpose of this content.
Hmm.
And I find there's always ways that you can make it work depending
Right.
on, and that's why I love using a script in many ways. Just like the environment, a script can be used to support your process, or it can be used and it can be a hindrance to your process. So the environment's the same way with the script. So in the script, you can put things in place that help tell the story, and in a quick
Yes.
sentence explain why you're there, and then the viewer's like, oh, that makes so much sense, and then they're dropped in. And I'm talking about specifically if you're choosing to film in an environment that might, like you said, it's supposed to be shot in a studio. But where does that idea of it's supposed to be shot in a studio come from first? I would dig into that. Why? Where did that come from? Why? Who said it's supposed to be in a studio? And then we break that down and go, can we not? And that's thinking outside the box, right? And that's the same mindset as when I show up in front of a camera, I need to become this
Right.
person. Says who? Says who? And so sometimes we get these limiting beliefs, right? That
Hmm.
create the structure that we think we're supposed to fit into this box because of what we
Right.
see online or what we learn from others and watching others. We're like, oh, they did it that way. So therefore I must do it that way in order um, to do it right or do it well, which is not true. And anytime that kind of belief comes in, I work to really crush that, because it's like, no, we have to find our own process that's unique to us. And that's exactly what Authentically You is all about. It's like, find your process that no one can copy, because it all comes from your experience, your life, your filters. And that's what makes you uniquely and authentically you. And honestly, that's what we need more of online these days, because the influx of AI content, and there's it's a huge platform online where there's so much
Yeah.
content, and there's something for everyone. You can find what you're looking for. However, I find that to break through the noise, and now we have to do the work of filtering through noise to get to the really good stuff that we want. And I know for all the creators and professionals that I'm working with, you have your unique voice that only you can deliver and only you can offer. So how do we find that and pull it out through and showcase that online so that that comes through your content?
Hmm. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing this. I think this has built the initial base for how one could actually start with by eliminating the beliefs and removing the limiting beliefs, and then move on to taking the first step. That's what really matters.
Yes, and the first step is, and for you, what are you hearing as the first step?
The first step for me would be environment is important. Like, where do I feel the most comfortable in? And rather than just being a very different person on camera, trying to be more of who I am. And as you talked about beliefs, accepting as well that, okay, this is who I am and this is who I want to be in front of the camera as well.
Mhm. And that's your
I
superpower, right? That's your superpower that only you can offer. And so we're finding that. Everyone is like we're all showing up online with something to offer. So it's like finding that superpower that's unique to you. You were
Oh,
going to say
yes,
something?
absolutely. We have two options right now. Either we could go to the next question. We have a question in the chat as well. So do you want me to go and read that first?
Yeah, sure, let's do it.
Okay, so Bit is asking, he's a game developer. Speaking of authenticity, should you aim for high quality produced videos with a setup recording space, or more like a do it yourself video from your living room?
Yeah, great question, Ben. Hi, Ben. Beloved member of our community. Yeah, this is a good question because, of course, we want to aim, a lot of people want to aim for the high quality produced videos with a setup and recording space. However, my answer to that is like, don't let that be the reason you don't film. Don't let that be the reason you don't show up and record. Because I always, talk about there's always room to grow. So everyone has to start somewhere, right? We start somewhere and then we evolve from there. And we don't have to make or break it based on our first video. So aiming for high quality produced videos with a setup and a recording space, yes, if that's what you want to move towards, for sure. But if that's the thing that's stopping you from creating content to get yourself out there, just record in your living room to get going. Because in the process of doing that, you will find things that you want to tweak, find things that you can make better, and things that might not work. And also things that you thought you wanted to do and talk about, and you're like, actually, this doesn't really resonate. So I think it's in the process of doing it and testing is where refinement comes from.
Wow, I think that's a beautiful answer, and you've tried to encapsulate the main points which actually hold you from not posting content, and just take the first step of putting it out there. I hope this answers the question for Ben. And Ben, if you have any follow up questions, please feel free to just put them in the comments, and we are happy to discuss on them as well. So I think we are getting a great momentum, and let's go to the next question. Would you like to share your screen so that we can go to the next question? So the next question looks like, as you were also talking about scripts. So do scripts really matter, or can you just speak whatever comes to your head?
I really like this question because we talk a lot about using scripts, and there's so many ways that we can use scripts to help us, but they can also become a crutch. And so there's first drafts for a reason, right? And so I
Hmm.
always find like when you do your first draft, when you're coming up with content, especially if you're doing like a long form, like a workshop, and you have slides and you have something you want to tell, there's a lot of pillars and points that you have to get through in your content. So the first draft is like put everything out. You had a good saying the other day. What was the saying? It was something about writing
Oh, yeah. I
drunk.
was saying
What was
write
that?
drunk, edit sober.
Yeah, write drunk, edit sober. So I love that. It's so funny because you're just writing. It's like just dumping your thoughts like a brain dump and writing your script. Of course, it's unlikely that you're going to read that script when you're creating your content or in your workshop because it's too much information. And if you do that, you're going to be reading and not sharing. And you might get lost in your own script. So, but I always say, like, start with the full script and then break it down into thoughts. So we break it down into thoughts and then in the process of doing this, you're learning more about your structure for that piece of content that you're working on, so that as you're doing this process, you're learning so much more and you're actually moving farther away from the script itself, so it doesn't become a crutch. So if you use your first draft as the script, it can very easily become a crutch, where you're kind of stuck to it, and then it creates the fear of like, if I take my eyes off it, then I'm going to lose where I'm at, and then I'm going to lose. So you kind of go down the spiral, and then it becomes a crutch, because now you're like, okay, I better just stay reading, or I'm not going to deliver the content, because if I leave this, I'm going to be lost, right? And so that's where you can
Right.
kind of go into a spiral of the script really holding you back. But if we work with it and break it down into thoughts, and then micro
Hmm.
thoughts, and then we've all heard of speaker's notes, right? But
Right.
if you've ever tried to just write speaker's notes, then there's not enough. And then you forget all these other points. So I always go big and then pare down, and then find the key points that you really need to
Hmm.
keep. They're like guideposts for your content, for filming. And then it becomes a support, a pillar for you, an anchor for you that you can reference to when you need to. And there's a
Hmm.
process that we go through to find the structure, because some people work really well with questions. So all they
Right.
need is they read the question, they're like, okay, great, I know exactly what I need to do. These are great for people who are good in interviews, who know their content really well. So they get asked a question and they can just kind of go with it, right? The thing that they have to work on there is to limit their time, because they can just talk and talk and talk, and then the times run out and they've not gotten to the other points in their content. But some people, they need like the intro few words. So,
Hmm.
the few words that get them going in their thought process, and then they can keep rolling with that. And others have a different process where they just need the main key points. If they know the key point that they have to talk about, then they can kind of riff off that. So again, it's so unique to everyone. So I think taking the time to find your process is what is
Hmm.
really going to help release all the restrictions of your environment and the script that hold you back from being free on camera and being
Right.
authentically you. And that's where the energy is free flowing. And again,
Yeah.
so the question is, can you just speak whatever comes to your head? So using the script to support that, so that you can speak whatever comes to your head from the content that you already know. So you're speaking from your heart and your truth and your knowledge, your base, right? Your wisdom to share your information.
That actually makes a lot of sense. And to add on to this, Ben has also responded with mentioning that it's a great life hack to writing Elfina. Thanks for that. Is there a life hack for your setup so that you have the least resistance to film, but also have a minimal standard quality for your video?
Is there a life hack? I love life hacks for your setup. Yeah, for sure. I have like the basic, I actually have a list in our community, like my tech stack that I go to for really basic stuff. And then if you want to, you know, upgrade your equipment, you can definitely do that as well.
Hmm.
But I feel like if you can, natural lighting is so amazing that if you can find a place and know how to use natural lighting, you don't need to find the perfect lighting setup, right? And of course, there's like easy, quick ring lights that you can use. That's one setup versus the 3-point lighting, which is more in depth. And there are like cheaper ring lights, and then you can get into the more expensive one. I find some of them. I used to travel a lot with filming, so I had to have like everything that fit into a suitcase. So I really like minimize my setup. But most people nowadays have really good cameras on their phones. So if you have a phone and you have natural lighting, you can do it. You can get going. So that's like minimal standard quality. People are doing that all the time. And again, if people can hear you and they can see you and they can feel you, you're good. You don't need, it's not going to separate you. If you have good content, you're speaking your truth and you're sharing something that's valuable to people, and that's your superpower, right? We talk about that. If you have that, you don't need to worry about the high quality tech. That will come later if you choose to, right? The people that are doing that now, some it's because that's their world. They love the tech, and others that they've been doing this for a long time. And they also have a team behind them to set that up.
Hmm.
So again, you know, not letting that limiting belief, and I've suffered from it too. I'm like, oh, my setup is not good, I don't like it. But then I got over, I'm like, you know what, blue screen back behind me, and it was just me in a box with my blue um the background, and that's it. That's all I had for a little while as I was transitioning, moving, building an office. So never let it stop you from creating if that's where you need to be to connect with your audience and grow with your audience and get yourself out there.
Wow. It's actually interesting to listen to this, is because there are times wherein we find reasons to not do something. It is, again, as you talked about, the perfect mindset. Like initially, we just want everything to be super perfect, and it should be the best masterpiece that you've produced. And that takes so much of time and thought process. And then you once again get back into your head and you're like, should I do it? Should I not do it? And then that loop of self doubt, and you just stop posting altogether.
Totally. Totally. And I've experienced that too. That's the perfectionism, right? It kind of all goes together. It's like, and then we get into, even for people who are filming and creating content, they get into the loop of retakes and perfecting the take. I know I've suffered from that a lot. Is like, to the point where, oh, my hair was out of place, it was in my mouth, or there was a fuzz that was floating through the, like, there's all these things that are out of our control sometimes, like the little fuzz floating through camera. But then we just have to learn to let that go, because we can
Yeah.
really because once you go into one loop, you can fall into another loop and another loop and another loop, and then it becomes a slippery slope, and then we don't get anything done. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the worst part. I mean, that's like you just say stuck and then you complain that you're stuck, but you still want to get out of it. So absolutely, I think these are the life hacks that we have like discussed because Ben asked, and this will help us actually build on to the momentum that we really seek in life.
Yeah, I like that, life hacks. It's great. I love life hacks. Who doesn't, really?
Absolutely. So I'd love to move to the next question that we have so that we can, which talks about why are, okay, this one has got to be my favorite. Why are some great public speakers actually bad on camera?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's interesting because I had a community member wanting to tackle both at the same time, and we had to really just kind of pare it down and be like, let's just focus on what you're doing right now. Because the thing is, the truth is that public speaking and being on camera are two completely different skills. It's the same as, filming, yeah, on camera
Hmm.
versus being on stage, right?
Yeah.
And because when you're on stage, you are directly being fed by the energy of your audience. So there's an energy flow that's happening, and you're receiving their response to you in the
Yeah.
moment, right? And so for some people that's really great, because then it feeds you and you know what you're getting, it's landing, and you kind of like, you riff off that. However, when you're behind a camera, it's literally you're in a room alone with a lens, and you have to generate that content, or sorry, generate that energy yourself while you're creating your content. And so that's where the thoughts can come in. I mean, the thoughts can come in when you're on stage too, right? When you have eyeballs staring at you and you're like, is this landing? Right? So it can happen in both, you know, medias. And so um, I find that when we have people that are really great talking on stage, and this is their modality, like that's the mode that they work in,
Hmm.
and then they flip and they're like, how come I can't do this? These are just different skill sets. And they still have that, but it's working to uncover those parts of them that are so free flowing on stage, and then
Hmm.
applying them in a way that works in front of the camera. So they are different skill sets, and that's exactly why. And I hear it often. And it is possible to do both well and to love doing both well, but it's just a different technique and learning that.
That actually makes a lot of sense. And as it's been said, public speaking is one of the greatest fears that a human has. And if we go back in the science, evolution backs it. is because when eyes are staring at you, sometimes this thought comes to my head that the lens, if I treat that as an eye, so it's just one eye that's, staring at me, and I just gotta look in that lens or in the eye of it and then speak. So that now I can actually understand that why is it actually difficult is because you have that one eye who's constantly staring at you. Like, even if you deflect, you still know that that particular lens is focusing on you.
Yeah, and sometimes with the camera, it's like you don't know who you're talking to, right? Because you're not looking
Hmm.
at a face. So sometimes for some people, what really helps is picturing someone you're talking to. Like if you were on a FaceTime, like even right now with you, I'm talking to you, right? But Ben's in here as well. And then who knows who else. And we're talking to everyone, but really I'm just going to focus on talking with you. And then that way, when we're creating content, we're focusing on one person that we're talking to, but it's likely that it will resonate with a lot of other people as well. And I think that is a technique that can really help people get over talking to a camera, because then they're like, I don't know who I'm talking to. And it can feel like the audience that's staring at you with that eye, and they're like, oh my gosh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like instead of feeling that you're speaking to an entire room of people, just focus on that one person or one persona and make your entire speech, content, whatever you are delivering, focused on that person. So the energy that you talked about would be better, and overall a better recording towards the end of it.
Yeah, and it's a great way to get more comfortable and out of your head, because when you have the mindset of speaking to one person, you're really trying to connect with that person. You're not worried about trying to present. And that's the
Yeah.
difference between presenting and connecting. So, yes, we can present with a slideshow or whatever it is, but I find people know, right? When you're presenting, people know when you're reading. They know when
Hmm.
you're reading a script. They know when you're using a teleprompter. They know when you're, the way we speak
Hmm.
is very different. So all these ums and ahs and taking breaks and all these things that we do, it helps to make us human. And then they connect. And then they're like, oh, it's not so bad. Like we don't have to present and be perfect on stage or on camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah, actually. And uh, so Ben also has an interesting question to add on to our discussion. Can you imagine to speak to someone or actually get someone to sit with you and speaking to him or her?
Absolutely, 100%. Actually, this is a technique I shared with one of our members who was really great with interviews. So, but struggled on camera alone. So I was like, it's okay to find someone who you feel comfortable with to sit beside the camera or behind the camera and feed you the questions, so that you are just literally like, this is the thing about filming, right? Guys, this, like, we get to do what we want. We get to set it up however we want to make it work for us. We don't have to set it up the way we think it's supposed to set up.
We
I have to
think,
sit with a
yeah,
camera and I have to talk directly into it. If talking to someone and having someone, even setting it up like this in this format, if that works for you, then do that, because that allows you to enjoy the process too. Because that's the other thing. It's like we want to enjoy. That's the whole thing about authentically you. It's like love to be on camera, love the process, fall in love with being on camera. I know a lot of people are struggling with that because it's terrifying. They feel like they know, like, you need to do this to connect with your audience. This is the place to do it because this is where your people are, but it's the thing that you don't want to do the most. So that becomes the thing that stops you. But is there a way to fall in love with it? Yes. Why? Because we find the way that we can set this up for ourselves that feels good to us. And it does take some time to figure out what that is. And then from there, we can grow and evolve. So whatever you need to do to make it work for you, have someone sit there and support you. They can be behind the camera, they can be feeding you the questions, they can be communicating back with you if you like conversation style, and you can edit. That's the beauty of editing and filming, I love, because you can edit and film in a way that allows you to be free and make mistakes and take pauses and breaks. And I'll just share this one story with this one member. He was like, I really want to, his intention was, I really want to learn to use this script
Hmm.
and film it in one take because I want to be able to do this on a stage. And that's where I was like, okay, let's just first of all take away the pressure of doing one take. Like, I know that one take wonder means like you're so, it's like the hole in one in golf, right? But it's
Yeah.
like sometimes you're going to get it and sometimes you're not. And that's okay. And the pressure of doing that off the bat is a lot of pressure. So if we can remove that pressure, what happens? If we have these um, permissions in place, right, that where we can
Yeah.
screw up, we can take a break. We don't have to deliver all in one breath or all in one
Right.
thought or all in one line. Um, what happens to our presence? We relax a little bit. We aren't afraid to stop and just breathe. And what that does is it helps ground us. And when we're grounded and when we're present, then we're showing up as us. But when we're in our minds and we're trying to deliver something with this parameter of delivering in one take, that's going to keep us in our mind because there's so many
Hmm.
things that could possibly go wrong trying to get that one take, right? And then now we get into the loop of retake, 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 to the point where maybe we just give up because we're like, I can't get the one take, I'm done, right? And so yeah, so I just wanted to share that story. So setting it up for whatever helps you be comfortable to show up, 100% do it. There's no rules. We set the rules. There's no rules, right? We give ourselves permission to do what we need.
Oh yeah. I loved how you actually took both the aspects, one of having that belief that it's difficult and like I just gotta be in that pressure or stress mode to make that happen, whereas the other side of the story, which is just get going, like it's okay if you are making mistakes in the first go, and it does not have to be perfect, and you can set your own rules. So the aspect of also granting yourself permission is because no one else is going to give that to you or tell you that, hi, you are okay to do this or you should be doing that. Whereas you were telling yourself that I should be doing this and this is the best way for me. So let's film it this way.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is the perfectionism is like showing up, filming, and then we have to post. It's not true. Sometimes some people are like they're struggling to just get filming. And it's like just film it.
Ah.
Just film it and see what happens. And you may be surprised by what you see because that's another thing that we struggle with sometimes is like watching ourselves, right? Versus what someone else watching us. And so watching ourselves, we are our own worst critic, our voice, listening to our voice, but it's like we hear our voice very different than everyone else because it's inside us, right? And like I struggle with that with my singing, right? Like with my singing voice, when I'm really belting, I'm like, that's what I sound like. But to someone else, it sounds very different because it's reverberating through my skull. So, right. So it
Hmm.
sounds very, very different. And the first time I listened to my own voice was in a voiceover class, like many, many, many years ago. And in listening to it in front of a class, and I was like, that's my voice. That is so weird. And it's coming through a mechanical device. So it's going to sound very different than someone else hearing your voice. And so we can become our own worst critics. So sometimes it is helpful to
Hmm.
just get filming, right? And we actually run um, a workshop in our community called Lights, Camera, Confidence. It's a live
Right.
action workshop. And I really love this one, the format of this one, because I find that a lot of the people that join this one, they started with not creating videos for years, like 2 years, they were like thinking about creating. And out of this one workshop, I think it was like 90 minutes, out of this
Yeah.
one workshop, they created 5 videos that they were posting. We should run that workshop again. I'm going to find a date to put it in because I really love that. And it really helped people get through a lot of blocks. And we move through scripting stuff in that as well. But the purpose of this, it's a live action workshop, is really just blasting through the
Hmm.
limiting beliefs and the restrictions that we place on ourselves. So that's a really good one. It's good that came up today. I actually want to run another one because that was really cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would need that is because they would actually know what needs to be done. And by being a part of the entire challenge, they will start putting stuff out there. Even though they are the worst self critic for themselves, people would give them a nice feedback about, okay, this could change and that could change, and that would be the best iteration for their content.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I love that people are like um creating 5 videos at one time in one workshop. Like that's amazing, right? They were short videos, not long form obviously, but they can easily be turned into with the process and just flow into a long form if they needed to. Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. So with that,
Mhm.
I would love to go to the next question since we have none right now in the comment. Could you please share the screen so that we could actually go to the next question as well?
Yeah, I don't have any more that was pre asked in the members, but I think you have them, right? Do you want to just share it?
Yes, I had
Yeah.
actually a list of interesting questions that I kept for you.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
the one question is, I would love to know about what is your, for example, when you're preparing your camera. So, while preparing for an on camera presence, what should I be most aware about?
Aware about on
Yes,
camera.
yes.
Mm, okay, this is where I like to dig into like what's the setup and what are you
Hmm.
talking about? So is
Okay.
there more information about like what they're recording? Is it a workshop? Is it you know, is it social media content? Is it a meeting, a presentation, a sales presentation? Is there information about that?
So, let's say if I'm preparing to just record a pre-recorded workshop or a pre-recorded online course, and if I am actually setting up to put that on YouTube or any platform later on, what should I be aware about while I am recording that online course slash workshop in a pre-recorded manner?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, like, of course, there's all these technical things, right? Like, if we're talking about a workshop and there's a structure to it, and there's, the intro and your story and your background, and then the deliverables, which is like the values that you're giving, the valuable content that you're offering. And then if there's next steps, right? The logical next step that, to working with people is your presence is like being fully present with your content. And it's
Hmm.
it's kind of encapsulating everything we're talking about, right? Because is this content that is that you're creating, that you're offering, or is this someone else's content that you're delivering? Because that also changes how you're showing up. However, the same rules apply in terms of your presence. Like, are you fully present and engaged? Because
Hmm.
again, we talk about people can tell when you're not really there and when you're reading and when you're just delivering information. A talking head, we like to call it, right? Are you a talking head,
Yeah.
or are you embodying your presence and being fully you while delivering the message? So, and it's kind of an interesting thing to ask, because if you're being aware of that, then are you in your head? Right? So it's like, to not to the goal is to become fully present where there is no awareness of that, because you don't need to be, because you're fully present in the moment. And then all these other things that we talk about, confidence on camera, becomes effortless, because now we're no longer having to be like intentionally aware of
Hmm.
our presence. We are just present. And when we can drop into that present state, the
Hmm.
confidence is effortless, and that is the goal. And that's the goal. And that's where we captivate people. That's where we connect with people. That's where they're drawn into you. And it's almost hypnotic. It's like, it doesn't even matter what you're saying. They just want to hear what you're saying, because you're speaking the truth, right?
True.
It's coming
Yeah.
from a really honest and authentic and genuine place. Does that
That actually,
help? Does that
yeah.
make sense?
Yes, that does help. Is because sometimes that actually helps you refine the content as well that you're talking about. Even if it is a borrowed content, like stealing like an artist, still that has your own touch. So that becomes your own content. Like all the information that you've had is already there out in the world. You have gathered bits and pieces from multiple people. So after studying all these people, you've like stolen their work of art and now made your own work of art from that entire input that you took from these people. So that's very important to, as you mentioned, not be a talking head and know what you're talking about, like actually have expertise about what are you talking about.
And that's your superpower, right? Like there's a really popular book called Steal Like an Artist, but I love to use the word model instead and versus copying and stealing because there is, we are all sharing, we're all speaking the same words, but in different order. And we're all sharing somewhat similar information, but it's filtered through our own experience and our own life. And so the way that we deliver the same information is going to be very different, right? Based on
Yes.
our past. And
Hmm.
so that is what we talked about earlier is like that's your superpower. Is like how do you deliver that and how do you embody this information to share that with your audience because then how many coaches are out there, right, doing kind of the same thing, but
Yes.
people resonate with different vibrations, so you're finding your audience, the people that are meant to
To
be
resonate.
connected with you. And I had someone share the other day, like he believes that his audience isn't on this platform or this platform, and I just said, how do you know? Because I think that your audience is everywhere. You just have to find your way to get to them because they are. We can't decide where your audience is, right? There's people everywhere and they're everywhere online. So it's just a matter of refining how we're showing up and our message, and it's coming from our authentic self and our superpower, and it's our truth and our passion. And then you will find those people, and when you're speaking from your truth, the people that are meant to find you will find you. You will draw them in, and that is the whole point about being authentically you. It's like not worrying about fitting into what we think we need to be in order to attract these people.
This is actually beautiful, is because you can always attract people from the frequency that you have. You always do not need to be someone else or embody someone else to present yourself out there. Just by owning up your energy or own up, like being who you are, owning up to your authentic self, that is the true essence of the entire experience that you're creating for yourself and the people associated as well.
Absolutely. And that's the most rewarding, right? And it's so pleasant for our own experience to show up and be ourselves. Like it's effortless versus, okay, I have to go do this and I have to do this and this and this. Of course, there's technical things like that we have to figure out, right? That we've talked about. But, imagine getting to show up and just being you. That's it,
Yeah.
right? And that's exactly what we're doing in this community is like just being you. Grow your audience, connect with your audience, share your wisdom, share your truth by just being you.
Yeah.
And it becomes effortless. The confidence becomes effortless and the process of it becomes so enjoyable. It doesn't feel like work. It's like if you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work.
Oh, yes. This brings me to another interesting question that I had for you since we are already in the conversation about this. How to not feel anxious when I start is, even though when I am trying to build this confidence, anxiety is always there. So how do I eliminate anxiety when I'm starting out?
That's a great question. I think there are many layers of that. And when I'm working with clients, we want to get deeper into what that anxiety looks like. And so
Yeah.
I would ask questions of like, what's showing up, like what's actually happening in your head. And we can go into a little bit about this. But before that, I actually have a 60-second reset that is
Yeah.
free in our community as well. And it's just a 60-second grounding practice that you do before you film. And it just gets you present because when you're present, there's no room for anxiety, right? Like I don't know if you've heard of the saying, like if you're thinking about the past, it's worry, and if you're thinking about the future, it's anxiety. But if we're present, then that can exist, right? So the goal is to stay present in this moment and then delivering from there. And when we are delivering from there, the anxiety has no room to exist, right? So, but I will, however, also say that, and I'll share the link actually to that down below. I'll give that like to anyone who's not in the community as well, because I think that's a really good little just 60-second practice that you can do before you're filming or anything. And so, but with anxiety, there comes a lot of layers as well, because we all come from our own life experiences
Hmm.
and our own filters. The snakehead, I call it, when I talk to my daughter, is like, where is the snakehead? Where does this anxiety come from? And so that
Hmm.
is work that we do deeper, that we can do in the green room, right? In the green room is a program inside our community where we
Yeah.
can dig deeper into what is creating those limiting beliefs. And that takes more time and effort to look into. But through that process, we're able to really let go of the anxiety that comes up, because what we think is, let's say perfectionism, the symptom is actually anxiety as well, right? Like this one member, her perfectionism is quite high, so it's like really needing everything to be in the right place before
Yes.
getting it done. But what she's feeling in her body is anxiety. And so
Right.
there's so many reasons for anxiety to show up. So the quickest thing is to get present, with a quick exercise that I'll share with you guys below. But also, there's more work that we can do to kind of discover and unfold where that anxiety comes from, so that it doesn't become it. Not that it ever, it can go away, but also we can become used to it being there and knowing as soon as it shows up, what do we do? What's the trigger? And then
Hmm.
how do I work with that? And once we know the snakehead and where it comes from and knowing
Yeah.
these things about ourselves, then we can easily navigate that. I hope that helps.
That actually does. And I loved how you talked about that you would always have an anxiety because you're thinking about the future and if you're thinking about the past. But as you're in present, you are not bothered by any thought of past or future. And this incentivizing on the current moment that you are in brings you to the present and eliminates all the doubts that were lurking in your head, is because as the statement says that what if it doesn't work, so technically you are worrying about the future, and there could be another feed that you could replay as what if that does.
Yeah. The mind can be very powerful, right? And it depends how we give it space to navigate. So it can spiral us, or it can be really helpful in helping us create the environment that helps us be at ease and present.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there is one thing that adding on to this as a little question, so if I commit an error, should I restart or continue from that point while I
And
am
are you
on
talking
camera?
about like fumbling the words, or you kind of lost where you were at? What kind of error are you talking about?
It could be anything, like just fumble the words, forgot what I was about to speak next, or I just like got snapped out of what I'm talking about, and then I'm like, oh, what I was literally talking about. Or you jumbled words, you forgot the structure. Could be anything, but it just looks like a mistake to your head or your mind that okay, you've committed an error. Now what to do?
And are we talking about being live, or are we talking about recording content, like
I
filming
would.
for putting up somewhere else?
We're live because we can edit if you're doing a pre-recorded content. So it's like if you're live in front of camera and you commit an error, should you restart, continue, or like what should you be doing?
Like, what do you mean restart? Restart the thought process?
Yeah.
Or,
Like
I mean,
how do I cope with it? Like I have committed an error and now I know that it's been done. So should I restart or like go back to the first point that I was talking about or continue from that point? Like how should I manage myself because I know I've done that?
okay, I'm going to share a really embarrassing story here to give you an idea of what you should do. I used to do open
That's
mics,
interesting.
and I was singing a
Oh.
song, and it was like not, I was doing a cover song, and I lost my place. And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like literally on stage live with my guitar singing. I'm like, "Oh, I can't remember where I was." And then I was like, "Okay, let me go back." And I try to go back and I tried again. And and then and I literally was trying to restart and I couldn't. And I learned in that moment, it's okay to just let it go. If it's really important, I just, because I was like, oh, I have to play this song. If I don't finish playing the song, I haven't done this, right? This is like the same thing as if this is a message, this is a point that you have to get across. And so my friend was the MC that day, and he's like, oh, I was like, oh my God, that was so embarrassing. He's like, just move on. Like, just move on from it. So what I did is I actually let it go and I just didn't finish the song and I moved on to the next song. So in the same way, it's like if we're so lost, this is where a script can be helpful with points, right? If it's a really
Yeah.
important point that you need to get across,
Hmm.
and you are live, like it's of course it's different if you are presenting versus um in a conversation style. Because if you're in a conversation style, you're like, oh, sorry, I started thinking about something else, and can you ask me the question again? Like, if it's casual, go for it, right? And if you have a
Right.
good interviewer or mediator, they're going to notice that and they'll ask the question again. Or some really good interviewers are really good at helping people like go through situations like this. However, if you if you forgot and you're like, it's kind of one of those thoughts and you're like, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember, just move on. It'll come back. Don't try to like sit there and remember. Just move on, or have a script that you can like cheat sheet, like a notes that you can look down on. But if
Hmm.
it's a thought that was kind of fleeting, just let it go and trust that it's okay that it's gone, because you can always come back later and share it later if you really need to. So I know how that feels. I know how that can feel. But the best thing to do is just be like, oh, I can't remember what I was saying, and then move on and just be authentic, right? Like if your thought process is sharing that is like, oh, okay, that person's human. They're going to forgive you. But the more
Oh.
we try to perfect it and fail, the more disconnected we become with ourselves. And people they're always rooting for you. They don't want you to fail. But it's because you're disconnected with yourselves, they get disconnected to you. It's not that they
Hmm.
want to be disconnected to you. It's that they're watching you and they want you to recover, but they feel what you feel. So if you're connected to yourself, they will feel connected to you. If you're present, they will be present with you. But if have you ever felt when you're talking to someone, you're looking in their eyes and then you're just hypnotized? You're like, you're so captivated by what they're saying. And it's usually because they're so present and believing in what they're sharing that you're believing it too, right? But then when they're disconnected, you're kind of like, oh, I don't really feel, I don't really believe them, because they're not believing it. So it's like the more authentic you are, the more forgiving people are going to be naturally.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And how, like Benna said, fix it in the post edit, Yukta. Oh, I mean, yes, I could fix it in the post edit, but it's like if it's live, the main question was to understand if I am doing it live, and it's like streaming live on camera, so there is no edit. Like it's just what I'm talking, and people are listening live to it. So how do I
Yeah.
recover from these mistakes when I'm connecting to my audience? In a live format. So absolutely, post edits. That I think, as Alfina mentioned, that's the beauty of filming and editing. In her words, that you can always, if you've made some blunders, you can always correct them in the post edit and be like, I didn't like this. Cut, 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 cut. This is the part I like. This merges with the best part.
Here's another thing. Most people, when they're watching, they don't know it's a mistake unless you make it a mistake. Like only
Yeah.
you know it's a mistake because something's happening in your head, but what they're doing, they're just listening. So if they don't know it's a mistake because you don't make it a mistake, they're just like, "Oh, cool." You know what I mean? Like we
Yes.
create that. So that's where it's so important to just be okay with making mistakes.
That's the
That
most
actually is
beautiful part.
like the perfectionism. That's actually breaking down the perfectionism problem that some people struggle with, right? It's like,
Yeah, and
and that
I
takes
think we're
work too, to
human.
let go of the perfectionism. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're humans, and that's okay if we make mistakes. And I think sometimes that's what I've seen as well. That if you're making mistakes and you do show yourself as you are human, errors happen. People connect with you more, instead of if you're trying to come across as someone who's the most perfect person, got it all figured out, knows what they're doing, and comes across as a very Mr. or Miss Perfectionist. There is a little bit of disconnect that people have. I mean, they might have an audience that admires them a lot, but there would be a less number of audience who would connect with them. What do you think about that?
Mm, can you ask that question again?
Like the difference between perfect people, like those who come across as perfectionists on camera and are like
Hmm.
they've gotten it all figured out, and they portray themselves as a perfect embodiment of that character that they are playing in front of camera, in that when they are delivering something. Whereas other kind of people, those who commit one or two errors and they're like, yeah, okay, I think this happened, let's restart or do like, wherein they give themselves the flexibility to make errors.
Hmm.
Who has a better connection with the audience, which type A or type B, the Mr. Perfect, Miss Perfect, or the other one?
Here's the thing, right? Like everyone's online and there's an audience for everyone. And your vibration will attract to you the people that are meant to be attracted to you. So
Hmm.
both types of people are going to draw to them the people that are going to resonate with them. There's no one or better. And it depends. How do you want to show up? So this is where we
Hmm.
get into the conversation of, the ego, right? A lot of people can show up as the ego, and and what does that mean? Everyone's ego is different, so they show up as the ego, but people will resonate with that as well. And there's nothing wrong with that way of showing up if that's what feels good for you. But there are others who really don't show up with the ego, and they show up with their authentic self, and that feels good to them. And they're going to draw to them the people that are drawn to that level of energy. So I
Yeah.
can't say whether which is better. My whole intention with this community and this work that we're doing here is really for those who want to show up authentically, that want
Hmm.
to feel effortless in their presence, and where this feels fun and exciting and it's effortless and it's easy and simple. And it's themselves, right? Their true selves. If we are showing up as our true selves, not wearing a mask, right? Not wearing a mask, then how does that feel compared to having to put ourselves into a box and trying to be someone that we're not actually? And to be honest, and this is where we can go down a really big rabbit hole. Maybe this is for another time, right? Another call, which I'd love to. Is really, when we wear the mask, like what does that feel like?
Hmm.
And sometimes people who are wearing that mask and living out of their ego might not even be aware that they're living out of their
Yeah.
ego. So we are not in the business of convincing anyone to be anyway. It's just if you want to be authentically you and there's something inside you that you want to share, let's do it. Let's get your wisdom out there. I know there are a lot of people that have a lot of amazing information to share, and being online is the fastest way because you can reach the most people, and it takes a bit of navigating to do that and to find your people. So that's how I feel about that.
Oh, I love this take, and I would love to have another session wherein we could deep dive into the aspect of self awareness. As you mentioned, there are so many people with so much of wisdom out within themselves, waiting to go out and ensure that their wisdom could actually help other people. So I loved how you have touched these important aspects of knowing where are they coming from, what aspect of their emotion or their personality drives them to do things, and which in itself is so deep. Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is where I would love to take we have about a minute left to like take the time to invite any questions from today that it might have brought up for you in your journey, or what you want to hear or see about or talk about in the future. I love having been able to bring up these points, and it'll help structure our next Q&A. And also, please feel free to join our free community and we can connect there as well. Yeah, and anything else from you, Yuka? I thought today was really great to answer all these questions and also get deeper into the conversations that we haven't been able to get into as much. So I really appreciate that. And thanks, Ben, for asking your questions too.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Ben. It was indeed an enriching experience to learn so much, delve into different aspects of presenting in front of camera. And one key takeaway would be that once you have navigated yourself or you're in the process of it, just do it instead of getting in so many loops and not do it.
Yeah, for sure. Just getting it done. And we'll plan for another lights, camera, confidence workshop because I think that was a really great one to like help people get through that block of creating, and we'll get going on there. So hope to see you guys in the next Q&A or inside the community. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining. Bye.